Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us here tonight for King Jordan Radio. September 17th, 2015 is your date. Tonight we're going to be joined with two defense attorneys. Tonight's topics are James Blake, the cops was mistaken for the former tennis player. We'll get into that. We'll also get into the civil case with Freddy Gray, and we'll talk about that with our guests. Also, we'll talk about these three latest accusers, and we'll talk about the lawyering for Bill Cosby. And finally, trending topic majorly is Kim Davis. We'll get our thoughts from our panel right now. First of all, let me introduce famed attorney out of Phoenix, Arizona. Ladies and gentlemen, he is a defense attorney, and he just wrote a very nice celebration a couple of days ago on Facebook. That was some awesome read. Let's bring in the one and only Mr. Dwane Cates. Good evening, Dwane, and welcome back to the King Jordan Radio Show. How are you?
Great, King Jordan. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
That was some letter you wrote. So how many years has it been?
Well, I celebrated 25 years of continuous sobriety on Sunday, and it's been a heck of a journey. Okay,
we also have joining us from Vegas. He is also a criminal defense attorney out of New York City. He is the one and only heavily demanded back on King Jordan Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Richard Herman. Good evening, Richard, and welcome back to the King Jordan Radio Show. You're joined with me and Dwane Cates. How are you?
King, I missed you, and Dwane, congratulations, and big fan of yours. Wonderful.
Oh, thanks. A big fan of yours also.
So, King Jordan, I'm still vomiting over the giant loss against the Cowboys, and I know you're in sports,
but
how $80 million quarterback doesn't know how to lay down if the guy's not open in the end zone. How does this happen in the NFL? It's beyond me.
It's beyond me. And what about the coach? He has to take some blame, too.
I'd fire him. I'd fire him immediately.
That's what you said a couple of years ago. Well, let's see
right.
if it definitely pans out in terms of that.
You guys don't have a lot to complain about. I mean, I'm an Arizona Cardinals fan, okay?
I didn't want to bring you in this conversation. I didn't bring you in on this.
It's been a long, long time since we've done anything. And,
it's going to be a long time,
we've tried to talk
too.
Kurt Warner. We've tried to talk Kurt Warner coming out of retirement many, many times, and he's just not going to do it.
You actually want Kurt? Didn't he bring you to the Super Bowl back in 2009?
He did. The only time we've ever, I think it's the only time we ever won more than one playoff game in 50 years.
Oh, goodness gracious. Okay, let's start off with James Blake, mistaken identity by the NYPD. Here's a soundbite, then we'll get on the top of the story.
Former tennis player James Blake was tackled and handcuffed by New York City police officers Wednesday outside of his hotel in Midtown Manhattan. Blake, who was on his way to the U.S. Open, said that officers mistook him for someone they believed to be involved in an identity theft ring. He suffered a cut to his elbow and a bruise to his leg and said he was upset with the force used by the officers in apprehending him. New York Police Department Commissioner William Bratton publicly apologized to Blake at a press conference this morning and said that Internal Affairs is investigating whether improper force was used here. Here's Blake speaking with Robin Roberts on Good Morning America this morning.
You were reluctant to come forward. You just wanted to put this behind you. Why did you change your mind?
Well, it was immediately after it happened. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. I was so shaken up. I just didn't want to hear anything or talk to anyone. And I immediately talked to my wife. She was the first person I talked to, and she said, what if this happened to me? And immediately I was furious, because I thought about what I would be thinking if someone did that to my wife. If someone tackled her in broad daylight, paraded her around in a busy, crowded sidewalk in New York City with handcuffs, with her cuffed behind her back, and taking away her dignity. And I couldn't accept that. And I know that a lot of people have no voice to have any recourse, and I'm lucky enough to have the opportunity to be sitting here with you, to be able to tell this story and let people know that this happens too often. And most times it's not to someone like me. It's to someone that has no way of...
no resources to be able to get their story out.
Exactly.
Powerful words by James Blake. Stephen A., your reaction to this story?
Well, obviously, it was incredibly alarming to hear. I applaud him, first of all, for the way that he conducted himself. He got cuffed in broad daylight and was paraded around in handcuffs in broad daylight, and for some inexplicable reason was held for 15 minutes before his ID was even checked. So certainly there's obviously a reason for him to be alarmed. But I also want to take a moment to applaud him for the kind of things that he articulated, talking about the police officers and by and large how most of them do their job and do a damn good job, but those who don't need to be dealt with, punished, thrown off the force, or whatever the case may be. And that brings me to my biggest point of it all. It's obvious that particularly in today's day and age, it's still hard being a black man out here. Let's just call it what it is. But more importantly than that, the police officers out here, and in this particular case, the NYPD, you really got to take a look at yourself. With all of this stuff, all of this noise that has been made because of police brutality, for a guy, an officer, to roll up on James Blake, who, by the way, was once upon a time the number 4th ranked player in the world, to roll up on him, no badge, nothing around your neck that indicated you were a police officer, to just roll up on him, throw him to the ground, handcuff him, and for William Bratton, who I applaud for ultimately calling James Blake to apologize, to be the police commissioner in New York City and to say that initially this guy, the alleged assailant they were looking for that was engaged in theft, could have been mistaken for the twin brother of James Blake, sort of giving the indication that James Blake looked just like the guy. It just doesn't hold water right now. He's standing outside the hotel, the Grand Hyatt Hotel. The streets of New York City are obviously incredibly crowded. He was en route to the U.S. Open. To take him, go up to him, slam him to the ground, handcuff him, and for it to take 15 minutes for you to check his ID and to see that you may have mistaken, I think it's just egregious, because there's obviously a flagrant level of sensitivity that was lacking. There's no denying that, because if you had any kind of sensitivity, you would have checked his ID long before that. It would not have taken so long, and more importantly, the indignity that he was subjected to would not have been as profound, because he wouldn't have been in cuffs for about 15 minutes. So all of those things come into consideration, and even though we're thankful that this wasn't a fatal case where a shooting took place, somebody lost their life, or their life was endangered, it still highlights and illuminates what a lot of black folks in America have been talking about, particularly in recent months, when they talk about police officers engaging in a level of excessive and unnecessary behavior at times, and they're saying that it is primarily against them, meaning us as black folks. And I can say that And the reason I can say that, Skip Bayless, is because you know, Molly, you know, because you both have heard me speak on this issue. I am one of those people who repeatedly gets on folks for just throwing out the words police brutality, because it gives the impression that all the police are acting in such a way, that none of the police can be trusted, that you can't depend on them, and more importantly, it invites and potentially provokes lawlessness, which I would never, ever in a million years support. But the actions of a few within the police community are clearly tainting the many. And incidents like this, although it was not fatal and it did not involve a shooting, is emblematic of the kind of things black folks have been complaining about for quite a long time, and it has now resurfaced yet again. When it comes to us, there are some officers out there that lean more towards guilt than remembering how folks are innocent until proven guilty, and more importantly, exposing them to a level of indignities that we don't see happening to other people. And that's the issue here. If it were happening to everybody, perhaps we would pay more attention. If an Andy Roddick or somebody like that, if it had happened to them, or John McEnroe or somebody like that, well, you know something, we wouldn't like it then either. At least we shouldn't. But at least you could see how there aren't people being prejudiced against and being profiled. That doesn't appear to be the case when it comes to us. And the fact that...
Okay, Richard Herman, first of all, your take on James Blake. Second of all, your take on Stephen A. Smith's take on the whole situation.
Well, Stephen A. does not take a breath. I mean, he wants his time on air, I'll tell you. And generally I'm a fan of his, but in this case he's lost his mind. He really has lost his mind. This has nothing to do with black or white. This was New York City Police Department. You know, sometimes they make mistakes. Garner was clearly egregious mistake, and they will pay for that. But this situation, I've watched it, had nothing to do with black or white. They had a report that this person looked like the person. They went, they took him down. It took a little time. It wasn't egregious. He didn't hurt himself. He didn't break a leg. And I've had cases, and excessive force cases, where officers have actually cracked the guy's leg in half taking him down. So that's not what happened here. He has no bumps and bruises on him. Give him a blanket. It's a tough job being a police officer in New York City, and this guy fit the description. They got in, they got out, and they released him. And, you know, it's not a perfect business, and it's not, you don't walk up there in a tuxedo and say, "Oh, sir, are you someone involved in credit card fraud?" You know, maybe the guy pulls a gun out and blows a police officer's head off. You don't take that risk, okay? So they did what they did. In my book, it's not egregious. It's not excessive force. It was quick. It was in and out. And let me tell you something. Internal Affairs are investigating this. If by chance, and this officer has a little history of excessive force arrests, if anything goes down here, you know what he's looking at, guys? He's looking at maybe losing a few vacation days. That's about it. So there's no way Blake sues him. If Blake sues him, he gets a fat donut, zero. He doesn't recover one dime in this case. Has nothing to do with black or white.
Well, and I agree with that. I don't believe that it, you know, I mean, he was taken down because he looked like the guy in the photograph.
Exactly.
I mean, that's why he was taken down. It wasn't because he was black. But I disagree that it was a bit egregious. You know, there were 6 officers with this guy, and they were going after a guy that was using a false credit card. I mean, this guy wasn't an armed robber. This guy wasn't a burglar. This guy wasn't somebody that had been accused of violent crimes. This guy was a fraud suspect. And you know, the officer could have walked up to him with 3 or 4 officers, showed him his badge, said, you know, "May I see your ID? We need to talk to you." And you know, and if the guy would have tried to bolt or run or fight, there could have been 3 or 4 guys standing around him, and they could have taken him down.
Dwayne, I didn't see any other officers there. I saw one-on-one. I know there were reports there were 5 or 6.
All the stories is that there were 5 or 6 backup guys.
The stories say that, but the video that I saw, one-on-one. So
all right, I think they just. I understand that that's what's shown in the video, but I have to go by what's been reported, you know, and it's one of those deals, you know, that it's. I mean, I had a client literally was asleep at night. They transposed 2 numbers in the address where they were supposed to go get a guy. They kicked his door in, drug him to the police station in the middle of the night in his pajamas. Okay, and and it was an hour and a half, 2 hours before they realized that they had the wrong guy and they'd gone to the wrong address, and they didn't even give him a ride home. They just set him out on the street in his pajamas.
Oh, goodness gracious. But you don't agree with Mr. Stephen A. Smith either, Dwayne?
I don't. I mean, I think that, I don't think this is a black or white thing. I think this is a cop that likes to take people down, that he has fun doing this, and that there were alternative. I think there were alternative ways to do it. I really do. And
even Blake,
he may have been
Blake, they asked Blake, "You think this is a racial thing?" He said, "Absolutely not." I mean, Stephen A. will drum it up, because it's the politically correct thing to do in this day and age. But he's wrong. He's just blatantly wrong.
I mean, if you want ratings and if you want to be a race baiter and stir the pot and get a bunch of people to listen to you, then you can take that tack. And I don't think it was either. But I think the cop should have walked up, showed him his badge, and said, "Excuse me, but I'd like to talk to you."
If there are 5 or 6 cops there and they all surround him and do it, I agree with you. But from what I saw and from the video I saw, it was one-on-one and 42nd Street. You know where that is, King, right there at the Grand Hyatt, there on 42nd Street. There's a lot of people around. It's easy to get lost in the crowd. They took the guy down. They got him in. They got him out quick with no injury. And I had a case up at Yonkers at the racetrack up there, the casino up there, where an undercover, no badge, no ID, nothing, comes up behind someone, lifts him in a martial arts move, drops him and breaks his leg in half on a bullshit arrest. They went ahead, we brought a case again, the Court of Claims in New York, and it was a state verdict. It was nothing. They just don't pay these cases unless you bring it federally and with a jury. And it's just, here, there's no injury, there's no damage. He got a little, his ego got hit a little, but, they're trying to protect the citizens of the city. And, look, it's credit card fraud. I don't know what else it was. If that's all it was, there may have been least restrictive means they could have used. But what can I tell you?
But, Richard, think about this. I mean, you live in New York. If this had been in Arizona, there would have been a possibility the man had been armed. Okay? And if I'm standing there and I'm armed, and some unidentified guy jumps me and starts taking me to the ground, I'm going to try to shoot him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's how you get in trouble. When the police officers give you a command and you decide to go against them,
if you know it's a police officer, I agree. If you know it's a police officer, I know. If you know it's a police officer, that's a wonderful thing. But this guy never identified himself. He came out of the blue and jumped this guy. If this guy would have just totally kicked this guy's ass, he'd have had it coming. Because he never identified him as a police officer and he never gave him a lawful command. He simply walked up, tackled him, and threw him to the ground.
Absolutely. The next story I want to cover is a very sad case. Here's a little bit of sound from it.
Today we heard some potentially damaging statements from police about Ross Harris, his actions and his words in the minutes and hours after he discovered he'd left his son in his hot SUV. One of the first officers on the scene described Harris as pacing back and forth on the phone and on the other side of his car from where paramedics were attempting CPR on his son.
He was yelling, but the yelling was somewhat monotone. It wasn't what you'd normally see at death scenes where you see tears.
Objection.
Later, detectives brought Harris to the police station, questioned him for about 20 minutes. About an hour later, listen to his reaction when he hears what he's being charged with.
I had actually sat down to explain to Ross his charges and told him it was going to be the cruelty to the child and the felony murder. And at that time he looked at me and goes, "There was no malicious intent."
The judge saying she will allow those statements to be heard by a jury. We expect to have a trial date by next month. They're looking at early spring 2016.
Okay, Richard, what do you make of this case? And if you're defending this guy, what do you go with?
Well, it's a real tragic case, a real tragedy, and this guy from the outset, and I've covered this on CNN, and I've looked at it early on, and he looked real bad. I mean, this looked like he set this thing up, and how you do that to a little kid, I don't know. But I will tell you that it looks like this judge has just botched this case. You know, when you're in a custodial situation with the police and you ask for an attorney, or you are not given Miranda warnings, and you're in a situation where you can't just get up and walk out, and you start making statements, that's what gets precluded. That's what gets struck. And this judge has said, no, I'm letting it all in. So it looks like a very weak judge who doesn't know the law, and unfortunately, in a real serious case like this could be a fatal error on appeal.
Yeah, and I agree. And Jordan, you kind of made a mistake. You had two defense attorneys on. I mean, we can't even argue with each other about this stuff. You know, we're both on the same side. You know, and the truth is, and there is a chance for a plea, but but the prosecutor has to offer one. Okay, so right. It's not like an automatic thing. And and I argued with Nancy Grace about this as much as I could get through the yelling, but the problem with this case is, and I think Richard will agree with me, that a lot of times trials are more about perception than they are about reality. And the fact that this guy was sexting and doing behaviors that are very unseemly, why his child is dying in the car, is going to piss a jury off to no end, and he's got a big road to hoe in the trial of this case. But
they gave him a procedural opening here, and that's the problem. The judge made a mistake.
Absolutely.
And she didn't need it. She didn't need to let all this stuff in. What he was doing at that time is devastating enough to a jury, almost impossible to overcome as a defense attorney. The guy looks bad, and it looks like a setup here, and his lifestyle and everything he was doing really put him in a guilty position. But I'm telling you, there's a very serious procedural error the judge made by letting everything in. All his statements, all his demeanor, everything is coming in, and that's when he was in a custodial situation without Miranda warnings and after requesting an attorney. So there's big problems with this, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and that's as clear cut as you get. When somebody requests an attorney and isn't given their Miranda rights and makes statements while in the custody of the police. I mean, it's just, that's police work 101, though. I mean, that's a big mistake on everybody's part.
So what the judge is letting in, essentially, Richard, is too prejudicial, you feel, to a jury, right?
Well, it's statements that he made outside the presence of an attorney, and it's just not admissible. It's not good evidence, and the judge is letting it in. So that's bad evidence coming in, which will be used to convict him with. And on appeal, he's going to get a reversal on appeal here, and the torture is going to continue for the families and for everyone. Real blunder by this judge.
So would you try for a plea deal if you can get one?
You always,
Jordan,
you always try for a plea deal. You always want a plea deal. And the problem is it's a state case, and the district attorney runs for office, and the community is up in arms over this. People are crying and disgusted over what happened here, and they want this guy to burn. And, what kind of deal are you going to accept? They're charging him with felony murder. They're charging him with endangerment. These are serious crimes with serious prison terms. And, what are you going to give the guy, 5 years in state prison? It's not going to fly. DA will lose his job. He'll never get reelected, and people are going to be upset. They want some butt in this case, and unfortunately, the judge is going to be, by her rulings, I believe, her rulings, which are an error, are going to prolong this thing forever and ever. And they don't need those statements to convict him.
Okay, 3 more accusers for Bill Cosby, but his attorney comes to his aid. Let's hear the soundbite, and we'll talk on the other side.
37 women have stood up publicly, pointing their finger and said that Bill Cosby has either raped or sexually assaulted them. Many of the stories follow the exact same script. They allege Mr. Cosby gave them a drink, it incapacitated them, and then he had his way with them. Cosby, through his lawyers, denies all of the allegations, saying that any and all sex he had with these women was consensual. One of his lawyers is here today with me. Monique Presley represents Bill Cosby and joins me from Washington. Monique, nice to have you here. Let me start with the deposition from the 2005 civil case against Mr. Cosby, which he settled privately. And I just want to read a paragraph from that deposition. It starts with the lawyer on the other side saying, when you got the Quaaludes, was it in your mind that you were going to use these Quaaludes for young women that you wanted to have sex with? Mr. Cosby says yes. That lawyer follows up, did you ever give any of those young women the Quaaludes without their knowledge? Mr. Cosby's lawyer objects to the question, restricted to the Jane Does. He says, would you please? The other lawyer says, no, I will not. And Mr. Cosby's lawyer says, do not answer it. So my question to you is, should he have answered that question? And I only ask that because isn't an attorney supposed to tell his client to not answer a question only if it will divulge privileged information or trade secrets or violate a court order?
Well, it could be any of those things, or it could be because it violates some agreement that the parties have about questions that will be answered and will not be answered. And this was one of those instances where questions were only supposed to be about a particular subset of individuals. And I certainly can't go back and second guess the work that was done by able counsel in that deposition. But what's important there is that the questions that Mr. Cosby did answer, and candidly, more candidly than many I've seen in depositions in all the years I've been practicing, those answers were, one, that he never gave a woman a drug without her consent, and two, that he did not have non-consensual sex with any other person. So that's why it's important for me to go to whomever I can who will listen and say that Mr. Cosby, as of today, is innocent until proven guilty, and there shall not be proof because the statute of limitations has passed. People waited far too long to want to discuss these matters at all. He's never been charged with a crime, never been convicted of a crime, and never admitted a crime. So where we stand right now is with people attempting to do through media and through public opinion what they cannot do and have failed to do in a court of law.
I understand what you say, that your client is saying, that Mr. Cosby is saying, but the fact is that 37 women say that Bill Cosby raped or sexually assaulted them, and some say that they were drugged. And I know he says that none of that happened, but are you saying, or is your team saying, that all of these women are lying?
And I'm not calling anyone a liar. What I'm saying is that Mr. Cosby vehemently denies those allegations, and I actually reject the clumping. I know that it's probably more impressive when we say numbers like 35 or 37, but 37 women are not saying that they were raped. 37 women are not saying that they were sexually assaulted. There, as you said, are a variety of claims that are actually distinct, that are being clumped together, I guess, because it's easier than doing what to me should be the hard work and asking the hard questions.
They are distinct, but none of them are very positive when it comes to Mr. Cosby. But let me ask you, have you ever seen a case where 37 separate accusers, even if they have different stories, many of them are close to identical, but where they were all making it up?
I don't know who's making what up. I'm not really comparing it to any other cases. What I'm saying is that, yes, through the decades, we have seen what we used to call lynch mobs, where people turned and pointed the finger at one person and accused that one person of doing something that they did not do, and they were filed into the court one after another to say he did it, she did it, when it was not the case. That happened often in the 60s and 70s in this country, and actually that's not what's happening now, because we can't even go into a courtroom to get these matters resolved. Some say that the statute of limitations has expired and that's convenient for Mr. Cosby. I disagree. I think it's convenient for accusers, because then they're not required to do what would happen if they actually had to be brought into court and stand under the scrutiny of examination for the allegations that they're bringing now.
Will Mr. Cosby ever come out publicly on his own without a lawyer like yourself speaking for him and say anything about these allegations?
I can't say what Mr. Cosby will or will not do at a point in the future, but what I know for sure is that in this country, you're innocent until proven guilty. It's not guilty until proven innocent. Mr. Cosby doesn't have anything to prove. He's speaking through his lawyers so that the record can be set straight, but he has the right to say nothing at all.
Monique Presley, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, Richard, what's your take on the latest with Bill Cosby? There has been a new accuser that she didn't mention, but overall, are you still sticking to that a lot of these people are lying, in fact?
Well, remember, if you take a nail and you go to the chalkboard in class and you run that nail from the top to the bottom of the chalkboard, that's Gloria Allred to me. Gloria all wrong. The media whore of all whores. And what she's doing is she's implanting herself in this fiasco where these people are recalling events that took place 40 years ago, and some of them on multiple occasions, which means they went back with him and continued to hang out with him at the Playboy Mansion. One girl, 15 years old, going there repeatedly getting hammered.
Right.
It's just so, look, there were a lot of players back then in that time, a lot of players, and Quaaludes were the drug of choice. They were, and I'm speaking from what people have told me about them, of course, that when you took them, it was like one Quaalude was like 4 drinks and no hangover, and it was a mellow kind of feeling, and it was really cool, and that's why they were outlawed, because people in Florida were taking them and passing out, driving their cars, and it just got outlawed totally. They were that good and that rampant. But look, you might have had sex with someone 35 or 40 years ago. Your life, you may be miserable in your life right now, and you may look back on it and say, I didn't consent to that. There's a statute of limitations. There's a reason there's a statute of limitations. There's a period of time within which you must bring a lawsuit to preserve the evidence, preserve the facts, preserve your story. You hear something today. King, do you know 4 weeks ago, on a Tuesday, do you know what you had for dinner? These people are recalling events that took place 40 years ago, 35 years ago. They didn't go to the police. The attorney was absolutely right. He was not prosecuted. And for everybody to gang up right now, and there's a deposition transcript which is bringing this to light right now that was supposedly done under a seal and under a confidentiality order, and apparently someone has released that transcript, and that's what his lawyers are upset about. And they want to know if the person who was involved in that particular case is the one that released it, or that attorney was the one that released it, so they can recover sanctions and costs and everything else. But at the end of the day here, the man is innocent. He's not been convicted of anything. In the deposition, he's denied forcibly having sex with anybody. He claims all the sex was consensual, and he was a player. And not like Will Chamberlain, apparently, but this guy was a player, and women went to him. And what did they go to him for? For his good looks and everything, or were they going to try to feed off his celebrity and try to get a position in Hollywood or do something? There's a lot of motivation here, and everyone has blown the statute of limitations. Everyone has, and it's just, look, you're right. When 37 people gang up on him, it looks really bad, and it's a great story to jump into, and his life's over. His career, his reputation, it's destroyed, shattered, can never recover from this. But at the end of the day, legally speaking, I don't think anything's going to come of it. What do you think, Dwayne?
I don't think there will either. And if you want your 15 minutes of fame, all you got to do is call Gloria Allred and claim you had sex with Bill Cosby and that he gave you Quaaludes, and boom, next thing you know, you're front page news. And I've been accused of being a media whore, but the thing is I don't get paid for it. So that, I guess, would make me a media slut.
You're a legal analyst, an intelligent, great legal analyst. That's what you are.
So anyway, the thing is, I don't know if you guys remember the repressed memory syndrome, the false memory syndrome back in the 90s, where
that's what
the
they're
guy
claiming here. Right.
supposedly molested 41 children in a daycare, and he was facing 1 million years in prison, and and it turned out it never happened.
Yeah.
And again, I believe that there's a kernel of truth. I believe he probably had sex with all these women. But again, in hindsight, they say, well, gee, he did get me drunk and we did have sex, and I wasn't planning on having sex that night. And then you see that, all the fame and attention and possible lawsuits of all these people. You say, well, gee, and a false memory is a memory that you strongly believe is true. It's not like it's a devious lie. It may have been something that you've been telling yourself for years, and it can come up. Now I know that and if it is true, it's a horrible thing that he did. If it is true, but the time to come forward and bring it up is when it happened, or at least within 5 or 6 years of when it happened. 30 or 40 years later, it's just unfair.
And Richard, any prosecutor probably would get pleasure out of taking down Bill Cosby. Wouldn't you think?
Only in California they would try to do this, where the law seems to be upside down, Los Angeles. But, I look, they're not going to do it. They can't do it. This repressed memory is garbage, and it's not going to fly here. And but look, Temple University revoked him. Other universities have taken away chairs that he's established, charitable things that he's done. They're just revoking him left and right. His reputation is completely annihilated, and some people say he deserves it. But, he can never get it back, and he can't prove anything, and it's just that's how he's going to fade into the sunset, Bill Cosby, and it's unfortunate.
He is. He's done. I mean, he'll never work again in any kind of public capacity. I mean, he's the third rail now. Nobody will touch him for anything.
Right.
And but he probably has enough money that he can go to Belize and buy a little beach house and
he's got enough money and
drink
enough
margaritas
set for life.
Yeah, drink margaritas and eat Jell-O.
What would you say about Miss Janet Dickinson and that model lady who came forward? Obviously, they don't need any attention or fame or anything like that.
Why not?
What would be their motives?
Janice Dickinson, Janice Dickinson got beaten by the ugly stick. I mean, this was a beautiful woman, and she didn't age well, and she had her, her moment in the sun, and now this is an opportunity for her to get back in the limelight. So why not jump on the bandwagon and make these claims? Where were you when this happened, woman? Where were you when it went down? Why didn't you go to the police? Why didn't you go to the press then? Why didn't you bring a lawsuit against him? Why didn't you do any of that within 10 years of the event taking place? You didn't do it. So come on, as a lawyer, and Dwane and I, we're a little jaded when we look at stuff like this, but and I can understand why the public is up in arms, but you have to do it in a reasonable period of time, and even with this repressed memory defense, you have to make a move, and you can't wait because it just tarnishes and it destroys evidence, and it just tarnishes people's concepts and ideas and facts, and it's just no good, and all of this is no good, and there's going to be no winner here. If these women think they're getting vindicated by coming out and making these statements and they sleep better at night, okay. But whether it's true or it's not, this man has denied it. He's never been prosecuted. He's never been convicted, and his reputation now is permanently destroyed by it. And that's life. It's not fair.
Yeah, I read a lot of comments where people are talking about we should get rid of the statute of limitations. Statute of limitations is horrible, and we should get rid of it. And and that's a recipe for lynch mobs to come out 50 years later, and when all the evidence is gone and all the witnesses are gone and nobody can remember anything, and make allegations. And Richard will tell you too that you get the innocent till proven guilty thing is somewhat of a myth when you walk into a courtroom for trial.
Garbage.
It is. I mean, it's out the window. Your guy sitting
anyone.
there.
Yeah, King, you ask anyone if they're under indictment and ask them what do you think about that? Under indictment?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it's 1 and 1 is 2. Oh, you got indicted? You're guilty. I mean, that's just the mindset of every juror.
And jurors believe, well, geez, he wouldn't be here if he hadn't have done something.
Right.
And full coverage tonight will be a special on at 1 a.m. It'll be the replay of that. It happened earlier inside the Bill Cosby case. Shameless plug. 1 a.m. tonight on the A&E network. You'll hear from the accusers, just like you did on the Dr. Phil show. And
listen carefully to their stories. Listen carefully and evaluate them.
Richard, did you hear the Dr. Phil episode, the latest one, where the 25-year-old came forward and said something happened in 2007?
No, you know what? He is media whore too. I can't stand him. And if he's having, I'll be surprised. They're probably paying these people to come on his show. I put no grain of salt in any of that stuff. So I'm sorry. I'm just sorry. I know some people love him. I don't love him. And he also is a media whore, like a lot of other people out there today. So I can't. I can't go there.
Okay. I just want to get your take on. you were giving some props to the lawyer of the Subway, Jarrett's attorney. You said on CNN that he has a great lawyer for him to get a maximum of 12 years. Can you reiterate that tonight? Were you saying on CNN a couple weeks back?
If he got a 12-year deal, I mean, that would be phenomenal for him. This guy's an animal.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dwayne. Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah, in Arizona, I mean, it's the presumptive in Arizona is 17 years. And
right.
In child pornography cases here, the pleas are generally between 12 and 15 years.
And the judges are hard on this stuff, real hard.
Oh, and they really are. But I had a judge that actually saw something that at least here they sentence people that look at child porn the same as the people that create child porn. And I don't think they should be treated the same. I think creating it is 100 times worse than looking at it. But here they're all thrown into one pot and cooked the same.
And King, you get a little better deals when they're closer in age, But when you have a guy like him at his age and the people that he was with, and the multiple counts, I mean, it's really, really brutal as a defense attorney to walk in.
Did you hear what he supposedly did? So he was going up to a woman, an older lady, and said,
she set him up.
Yeah, she set him up.
You need your Wheaties. You need your Wheaties to handle a case like this.
Yeah, but you know what the lawyer did that was magnificent was that this case blew up. He got charged, he got a plea, got sentenced, and he was gone before anybody really even noticed. I mean, this the news cycle was short. They got in, they got out. They didn't drag this on forever and ever and ever. It was great defense, and they did him a great service by getting this thing over with fast.
Well, let there be no
ordinary person in New York, Richard. What would they get?
That?
Ordinary male.
Oh, he get hammered. He get hammered in New York. Get hammered in New York. I had out in the Hamptons a case. And he would get over 10 years easily. I mean, he would probably get 15 to 20 years in New York, plus registry, sex offender registry, and severe reporting requirements and everything. I mean, I had a case out in the Hamptons where pretty close in age, a 15-year-old girl and a 22-year-old guy, and oh my God, they threw him in prison. I mean, they made him do time on that, and sex offender and everything under the sun. So it's
Arizona,
very, very tough.
In Arizona, every sex case is mandatory lifetime probation.
Yeah.
And the probation includes taking a polygraph twice a year. I mean, it's
tough.
It's brutal.
It should be,
it's
though.
Brutal.
It should be.
And it should. But again, the problem is they're using a really broad brush for that, when in fact they're very different degrees. I mean, I had a guy that was 17. He met a girl on Facebook who said she was 17. He crawled through her window, brought a bottle of vodka. They had sex. He left. Turned out she was 14.
Okay.
He ended up doing a year in jail, registered as a sex offender on lifetime probation. And she said she was 17 on Facebook, and she was wearing a thong bikini.
Dwayne, they needed you as an attorney on that one.
I was the attorney on that.
Oh, you were? Okay.
They were trying to put him in prison.
Tough.
And you
tough.
got him off, I think, right? Is that the one that you got him off?
No, I didn't get him off. I got him a year. I got him a year in county jail, and
that's great. That's good.
And lifetime probation.
Good.
But
King, these are very, very tough cases. These are very, very difficult cases.
Absolutely. Freddie Gray gets a settlement. Listen to this segment.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carries.
At City Hall, all 5 members of the city's Board of Estimates voted yes to the $6.4 million civil settlement in the Freddy Gray case. 2 people, both city business owners, filed letters of protest saying the money should instead replace lost business since the riots, but they were not present to be heard.
All of us realize that money cannot, will not, there's no possibility to bring back a loved one. But I hope that this settlement will bring at least a measure of closure for the family.
The lawyer for the Freddie Gray family spoke at a news conference. The family was not there.
Every time something in this case comes up, it just opens the sore that it's trying to heal. That's why they're not here today. They want to grieve in peace.
The city repeatedly stressed there is no connection between the civil and criminal cases and no admission of wrongdoing in the civil settlement. According to a City Hall spokesman, the city's lawyers did review the statements of the police officers and the autopsy before deciding to settle and skip the fight in court. Murphy planned to file a civil rights lawsuit in federal court where there is no cap on liability.
The city's $200,000 cap would not be implicated. So the city would be exposed to uncapped liability.
The settlement's timing raised questions just before a crucial change of venue hearing.
Both the city and the Gray family, in addition to wanting to resolve this case fairly on the merits, had a vital interest in preventing any violence, and we hope we've done that.
The city's lawyer dismissed the notion the Gray settlement sets a new precedent.
Sure, folks will say, well, the family of Freddie Gray got $6 million, so I want my $6 million, so we'll hear some of that. But, you know, we're big boys and girls, and we can distinguish between this case and the cases of the future.
The settlement agreement spells out the division of the $6.4 million. Most of it, $5.4 million, goes to Freddie Gray's mother. The other $1 million gets split up between his father and his estate. Also, as part of the settlement, Mayor Stephanie Rawlings-Blake has agreed to put police body cameras on officers in the Western District starting in October. That was a pilot project for police body cameras the city was already planning to do, but it will go forward next month. Reporting live tonight from City Hall, I'm Jane Miller, WBAL TV 11 News.
All right, Richard, let me start with you. You've been covering this case from A to Z. What's your take on this settlement with Freddie Gray?
It's so wrong on so many levels. I can't even begin to tell you. And I respectfully disagree with my dear friend Kurt Smoke, the former mayor of Baltimore, who's the president of the University of Baltimore, who thought it was a good idea. You don't settle civil cases to prevent violence. First of all, that's not a reason to settle a civil case. You settle a civil case because of liability. Here, you're not sure on the liability yet. There are some serious issues here on liability. 1. 2, it's unprecedented to settle a case with this magnitude without even filing a summons and complaint in court. Cities take usually 2-3 years or longer to settle civil cases. They get to hold on to their money. They get to keep it, earn the interest on it, not turn it over yet. This comes on the eve of the criminal trials, and we talked about that earlier, Dwayne and I, about the perception of the jury's minds if you're under indictment. You have to overcome that. You have to almost prove your innocence, okay? Here, everyone in Baltimore knows that the city has admitted guilt. Why would they pay $6.4 million if the city didn't do something wrong? Now, what happens in the course of the criminal trial if we learn that old Freddie Gray there, and it's a tragedy he's dead, but what if we learn that during his life he had a history of injuring himself to try to recover money in lawsuits? And what if we learn in the course of the criminal trial that on this particular occasion, from the eyewitness in the van with him, Freddie was intentionally banging his head on the floor and intentionally injuring himself? What if that's the credible evidence in the criminal case, and the city has just paid $6.4 million in a wrongful death case when the death was not foreseeable? This is an abomination. It taints the jury. It reeks. It's a stench in Baltimore, and I am just so disgusted with how these people, no wonder the mayor's not going to run again. No wonder. This is a real tragedy in Baltimore.
It is. And you know what this is? Yeah, this is the definition of mob rule, okay? This is mob rule, okay? Because there were mobs, because there were demonstrations, because there was damage, because there was rioting in the streets, you know, these officers got charged. Okay, now they may have deserved to get charged, they may have not deserved to get charged, but there's no way in heck that a prosecutor should come on, television and say they're getting justice for, that's crap. Okay? It is. You cannot do that. I mean, number one, that alone should disqualify the trial from being in that city because of that press conference. And they can say all they want that they never admitted guilt or they never had to admit liability, but I guarantee you go out on the city streets of Baltimore and you start asking people if the city admitted that they were guilty when they paid the $6.5 million, and everybody, and I mean everybody's going to say absolutely that's an admission of guilt. Okay? The state just basically said that these officers are guilty and the trial in the criminal case is just formality. Now what's going to happen is if they don't get convicted at trial in the criminal case, there's going to be more rioting.
Oh, then they're not going to be. That driver, there's no way that driver's getting convicted of second-degree murder. It's never going to happen. And you want to talk about rioting? Wait, just wait.
And that's what it should have been. They should have had the criminal. Now, they may have been civilly liable. Okay, there may be. I mean, they didn't seat belt him in, and that's protocol, and he died from flopping around in the back of the truck.
Yeah, but if he was doing it to
civil
himself,
lawsuit.
Right.
Well, but that's a civil lawsuit.
Right.
Okay,
remember O.J. Simpson. Remember O.J.
Yeah.
Simpson went to trial in the criminal case. He got acquitted. Then they brought the civil litigation.
20 years
of wrongful
ago,
death.
this October.
Right.
Next month,
different burden of proof. Different burden of proof. Similar, same facts, but different burden of proof. And he got, there were plaintiff's verdicts in that case. Here, that's all they had to do. Just wait. It's starting now. It's not like it's years away. The criminal trials start in October. How do you settle with an exorbitant sum like this without even a summons and complaint filed, without a deposition, without discovery, with nothing? You settle
I can never get that lucky when I sue the
Nobody,
city.
No, it's unheard of. It's really unheard of.
What do you mean? You write a demand letter and they write you a check for $6.5 million?
Right. And by the way,
that doesn't happen.
The lawyers are getting close to a third of that, so it's
at least
a
third
thing.
of it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But but that just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen.
It's bad, Jordan. It's real bad. It's real bad.
That doesn't happen ever.
Very prejudicial to the jury pool, very prejudicial to these people who are going to be in charge with murder, that they're entitled to their day in court on an even playing field where every juror knows the city just paid the family $6.4 million. The city, the employer for these police officers. It's bad.
This does seem unjust. But the final case has been trending all day, and it's been going around for a while. And let's hear some commentary first about it, talking about Kim Davis.
Clerk is who we were talking about, the lady who's refused to give marriage certificates to gay couples, and that's the conversation we were having before we went to break. So
I think, too, you talk about if you don't agree with the federal government, you can't work for the federal government. But I want to read this quote by
that's not what I said.
Okay. Well, let me just read this quote from Martin Luther King. When he was thrown into jail in 1962, he said, "When the nonviolent resistor refuses to cooperate with a law that is out of harmony with the laws of God, which she believes, and the laws of morality, he must break the law, but in doing so, he practices civil disobedience and accepts the penalty."
And goes to jail.
So
yes.
that's what happens.
Yes.
That's what happens.
I get what you're saying, but if you can't follow the law, and one of the reasons this is such a touchy subject is because we've been through this many times. And so people always say, my religious beliefs keep me from being able to give you what you need to have. People were not educated because people's religious beliefs said the black people couldn't be educated. So that I can't,
Can I ask a question? Because, the Pope now is even is standing up for the LGBT community. He says, "Who am I to judge?" Which that's supposed to be, your main man.
That's what God says.
He can't even stick to what's going on.
I love this Pope.
We all love him.
This Pope is I want to hang with this Pope. My dream with Kim Davis. I have just one thing to say.
He would drive your Mercury.
Are you kidding me? Me and the Pope, my Mercury is actually my dream. But let me say this about Kim Davis. My dream is that she stays in jail long enough to get gay married herself. I feel like that would be a perfect end. Wouldn't that be so great? I will officiate that wedding.
My dream is that all the gay priests come out of the closet.
Wow.
You know my dream is?
All right.
My dream is that folks will allow everybody to have the belief system they have without imposing it on anybody else. I want you to believe everything that is right for you. I want you to believe that. I do not want you to restrict me if I do not believe it. And that's why she's in jail. Not because she's a religious person. Not because...
And cherry picking in the Bible is annoying.
Well, it's always the same.
What about the San Francisco mayor, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, ladies, what about the San Francisco mayor years ago when gay marriage was not legal and he was issuing marriage licenses? He wasn't thrown in jail. So here, why is there
They threw a big parade for him.
Right, but there's a double standard. Why is she in jail, I think, is the question of a lot of people. But he wasn't thrown in jail.
She was put in jail because
the Supreme Court.
She was put in jail because they felt like if they gave her bail money, there would be too many people actually giving money, and she would get out.
She's defying the law. She defied the law. The law is...
Well, she's saying that guy did too.
He defied the law. At that time,
at
that time, he was issuing illegal marriage licenses in San Francisco. But I'm just saying he was not thrown in jail, but she was thrown in jail.
Because, well, you know, maybe it's a power thing. But now that it is the law, you know, you got to follow the law.
But also the licenses were not valid, even though he was issuing them. So now they're valid. That's the difference, isn't it? And there's a Supreme Court edict at this point.
So let's see how it goes. You know, it's crazy, but you know, this is the world.
And she has a lot of support in her corner.
I'm sure she does. And I want to support her. I have a lot of support for her because I want her to be able to say, this is how I feel. I do not want her stepping on my toes if I don't feel the same way. That's my bitch about this.
First, what's your take on everything that was said and Kim Davis in general?
Well, number one, I just lived my nightmare. I woke up and I was on The View. Okay. so that was pretty traumatic for me. There may be a lawsuit in the making there. But, you know, I mean, here's the deal. It's such a double standard. The mayor of San Francisco wasn't getting thrown in jail, and they're all saying, well, that's different. But it's not different. It's the same. What she did was wrong. I mean, the law is that she has to issue marriage licenses. You know, they should make a reasonable accommodation for her. They made a reasonable accommodation for a Muslim who's being tried by letting him have a beard in the court where he's not supposed to have a beard because of his religious beliefs. I mean, she should be able they should be able to get a reasonable accommodation, which I think they've done. They've got it so the deputies can sign the marriage licenses, and she should be able to have her faith. But to say that you know, when it's the other way around, you know, when the San Francisco mayor was issuing marriage licenses and it was against the law, well, that was different. There was a Supreme Court ruling now. You know, well, no, it wasn't different. The law said that they couldn't issue marriage licenses, and he was doing it. It's exactly the same, and it's a double standard. Now, and what I really bothered me was when I couldn't see who they were, but somebody said, well, the reason they didn't issue her bail was because everybody likes her, and they would be able to come up with enough money to bail her out. Well, that's what bail's for. It's to allow you to get out of jail and secure your appearance. You know, a reason for no bail isn't because we think you can make bail. There's got to be more. Okay, I'm done ranting.
No question. Okay, Richard, your take on the Kim Davis story and what you heard out of Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and company on The View.
I think that Kim Davis is a psychopath. I think that Whoopi Goldberg hit it on the head. I think that if you want to be a county clerk, you take an oath to abide and you know, enforce the laws as a county clerk. And if you can't do that, don't be a county clerk. I agree. If she wants to voice her opinion, I will fight for her so that she has the right to voice her opinion, but I will never fight for her to stand up and not follow the law. And that's the difference here. And so Kim Davis, if she's not going to sign these marriage certificates as county clerk, they need to terminate her immediately for insubordination and dismiss her. If they don't do that, and they have an issue now because some of the deputy clerks are signing the certificates with her name on it, whether they're enforceable or not, it's a little quagmire in the state. They're going to have to now go to the legislature. They're going to have to enact some different laws here or something, or fire her. I mean, that's the easy thing. Just fire her. She's in the wrong job. All these holy rollers that come on with this crazy insanity about this and that and the family virtues and family values, and we find out she's been married 13 times, she's got kids out of wedlock. These are all the mental cases that come forward. It's enough. This woman must be terminated, erased, get out of government, do something else where you don't have to struggle with enforcing the laws in the United States. It's not Sharia law here. We have laws.
I disagree a little bit, Richard, and here's why. If
how can
she
you possibly? With
hang
sanity,
on,
how
Richard.
can you disagree?
If it is insanity, but if she would have sought that job out, knowing that this was going to happen,
doesn't matter.
I would say it's insanity. She had the job that the rules changed. Now she can have strongly held beliefs.
You don't have the choice not to abide by the rules. Get out of it then if you can't.
Well, I agree.
Leave.
I agree. But she's making a statement, and
no,
she got what she wanted.
She got her. She should be arrested and incarcerated.
Right. She got her 15 minutes of fame. You know, she's got way more than 15 minutes of fame out of what she did. Okay. And she, you know, she knew exactly what she was doing. She knew exactly what she was trying to accomplish. And and I don't feel sorry for her. But you know what? It's kind of strange when they change the rules in the middle of the game and expect you to follow them when they go against your deeply held beliefs.
If you're a county clerk and they change laws every year, whatever the change in the laws are, you have to enforce them. If you can't, get out. You don't have to wait not to enforce them. Even if you don't like them, enforce them or get another job. That's all simple.
I agree.
It's very simple. People are making it much more complicated here.
Coming out to Sylvester Stallone's Rocky theme, Eye of the Tiger. What did you make out of that when she came out, i.e., like a WWE wrestler, to the Eye of the Tiger? What was your thoughts on that?
You're asking Dwayne that. Don't ask me because I was puking, so ask Dwayne. He
I was asking you that.
Oh, absolutely great theater. You know, and again, it's all calculated. She had Mike Huckabee, and guess who probably orchestrated that, for campaign purposes. I mean, it was theater. The whole thing was theater. She did it for theater. She did it to and then again, she's been married 3 or 4 or 5 times. It's a sad story, but you know what? She did what she did for her reasons. She accomplished what she wanted, and we shouldn't be, we've stepped right into her trap because we're on here talking about it. If we weren't on here talking about it, and if the world wasn't on there talking about it, she would have been very disappointed.
And they want me to ask you from Facebook what your thoughts are. First, I'll start with you, Richard, of the Donald Trump and this whole presidential race, what went down yesterday in particular.
Look, he is an entertainer, Donald Trump. He's a great entertainer, and he's entertaining a lot of people right now. Whether he should be president or not, that's another issue. The field is so pathetic on the Republican side that's why he's leading or he's close to the top. But look, he's an entertainer, and people are fed up, and he's feeding into what people want to hear. But at the end of the day, is he really qualified to be president of the United States? You got to sit back and ask yourself that. And look, we'll see how this thing plays out. It's just a mess. It really, on both sides, it's a mess.
He was way more qualified to be president of the United States than Barack Obama was. Barack Obama was a community organizer that spent a few months in
Barack Obama was a senator
has no business
from Illinois. He was a United States senator. Okay, that's
for
what
a few months. For a few
months.
months.
He was a senator. This
guy.
I
understand. He was there for a few months. I understand. He's a businessman. And
at the
if you run America if you run America like a business, it'll be successful.
Well,
okay?
But we don't. Everything is going to be the biggest and the best, and you'll see. But we don't have any particulars,
I understand.
So it's kind of hard.
I understand, but
it's
the same thing we were talking about juries as we're talking about the general public. Because perception isn't reality, and he's got the perception going. It may not be the reality, but
and that's
the perception's
the truth.
out there.
That's the truth.
And,
I agree with you.
And he's smart. I mean, you think that what he's doing is just off the cuff. You don't think he's sat and thought about this. You don't think there's a plan behind this.
No, he's the entertainer.
I'll guarantee you that Donald Trump has a plan, and he's doing things the way he wants it. And every time somebody says he makes a gaffe, he goes up 10 points in the polls. Every time somebody attacks him, they get killed in the polls. Okay, this is the strangest thing I ever seen. I love it, and I think it's good for American politics. I don't know if he's going to win or lose. I don't know if he'd be a good president or a bad president. But I tell you what, the American people are waking up. There's actual debate and talk about who should be president and what's going on instead of everybody sleeping through it.
King, we should go out with the entertainer. Get the song on. We should go out with that.
Well, no, we should just get Donald Trump on your show. Let's talk to him. Can you swing that? Can you swing that, King Jordan? Call Donald. I'll guarantee you. He likes to hear himself talk, and I'll almost guarantee you that he'll come.
Put him on with Stephen A. Smith. It'll be a long.
Yeah, put him on with Stephen A. Smith, and
that'll be it for the King. You won't get one word in.
Was that you, Richard? Oh, that was. I think that was you, Richard.
When can we catch you? When can we catch you, Richard, on CNN?
Every Saturday, brother. Noon hour every Saturday we hit. Noon hour every Saturday.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Richard, and Dwayne.
Thank you.
25 years. That's a big accomplishment. So big props to you. So congratulations on that. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to also give a shout out to Maddie Lynn, Lisa, Vicky, Pager, Sharon, Mary, and everybody else who indeed helps out the show and what listens, and definitely appreciate that. Follow the King Jordan Radio Show on Twitter at King Jordan RAD. Follow the King Jordan Radio Show on Facebook, facebook.com/King Jordan Radio. Next Wednesday night, we will have CBS NFL Analyst, who will talk about sports, NFL, and we'll talk about some MLB. Next Thursday night, we'll have a triple threat of Stacey Honowitz, Alex Sanchez, defense attorney, and Florida prosecutor, the one and only Stacey Honowitz. So check that out. Once again, big thanks to Dwayne Cates and New York defense attorney Richard Herman. As it's TBT, let me leave you with one of the classic songs, Rumors. Good night, everybody. We'll speak to you next week.
Oh, no, not again.
The jealous people and begging, matching something they had and somebody else is holding. Tell me that temptation is very hard to resist. But these wicked women, ooh, they just persist. Now maybe you think it's cute, but girl, I'm not impressed. I tell you one time only when my business feels so mad. When you look at all these rumors surrounding me every day, I just need some time. to be real close. Said he couldn't go on the American way. Closed the shop, sold the house, bought a ticket to the West Coast. Now he gives them a stand-up routine in L.A. I don't need you to worry for me, 'cause I'm alright. I don't want you to tell me it's time to come home. I don't care what you say anymore, this is my life. Go ahead with your own life, leave me alone. Never said you had to offer me a second chance. I never said I was a victim of circumstance. I still belong. Don't get me wrong. You can speak your mind, but not on my time. They will tell you you can't sleep alone in a strange place. Then they'll tell you you can't sleep with somebody else. But sooner or later you sleep in your own space. Either way it's okay, you wake up with the tell. I don't need you to worry for me, 'cause I'm alright. I don't want you to tell me it's time to come home. I don't care what you say anymore, this is my life. Go ahead with your own life, leave me alone. Never said you had to offer me a second chance.